This morning I have with me Gerardo Velazquez, Rodney, Gonzalez, and Trey Smith. They're all research civil engineers with the Geotechnical and Structures Laboratory at ERDC, otherwise known as GSL. Good morning, gentlemen.
Hey, good morning.
Good morning.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much for being here. And we're going to start out with something fun. We're going to learn about you. So can you tell me about yourselves, your background, and your roles at ERDC?
Okay, start with the old guy. I've been with Waterway Experiment Station / ERDC since 1986, so I'm the old guy. 38 years this past June. Hopefully for 3 or 4 more years, so I can retire and chase grandkids, or I'm going on cruises. Graduated from the University of Puerto Rico, Mayagüez in 86. Got married the same day of my graduation, and a week and a half later was on a plane coming to ERDC to work with the environmental laboratory.
Okay.
In 86. Eventually, we were dealing with camouflage, concealment, and deception for Army bases, and something happened that they decided to trade a couple of programs from the environmental lab to the structures laboratory. And the structures laboratory later became merged with the geotechnical laboratory and became the GSL. I think it was 2000, no, a little before that, which we merged with the geotech lab to become GSL.
Okay. It's so fun because we've known each other for a long time, and I didn't know all that information. Like, you graduated and you got married like the same day. That's cool.
That's it. And technically speaking, I was the first engineer hired from the the UPRM program of a summer intern, even though I did not came here for a summer, the way they do nowadays with the program that ERDC got with the university. Mm-hmm. Myself, I came first, and the other engineer who just recently retired, Carlos Gonzalez, was the second that we came directly from UPRM, recent graduate from UPRM, straight to work here in Vicksburg.
That's great.
We stuck here for all this long.
That's awesome. So you were the first one?
Yes, we were the first one hired from school.
Okay.
There were some people who came. The Corps used to have an office in Old San Juan, where the old castle, for those of you who go to San Juan and know about that place, in the old El Morro, they used to have an office in one of the castles over there, fortifications. They used to have a Corps local office. They closed that office and they offered jobs to everyone in the mainland. And there was like 2 technicians that came over to Vicksburg, and their wives also work at that time it was Waterways.
Okay.
One of them was in the environmental lab, which that was the one who hired me. And then his wife was some of the other Puerto Rican, I think it was like 4 families that came. But they were sort of forced to come basically because they closed, and if they wanted to keep a job there.
Right.
They basically, but they enjoy the place. So when they were trying to look for more engineers and more minorities, Alfonso Vasquez was the one who was in environmental lab, decided to, hey, why we don't go to Puerto Rico? NASA, maybe a lot of other agencies go over there to hire engineers, so they should have a good program. And that's how the trips to the UPRM started.
Oh, no, that's great. That's great information. So, Rodney.
Yes, I'm Rodney Gonzalez. I also graduated from the University of Mayagüez in Puerto Rico in 2008. I was a summer student in 2008 over here in the GSL. And then in 2009, March 2009, Gerardo hired me as a bridge inspector. So I've been here since 2009, working under the leadership of Gerardo Velazquez in the structural engineering branch.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So Trey.
Yes, ma'am. So I'm Trey Smith. I'm from Meridian and went to Ole Miss for civil engineering.
Hotty toddy.
Graduated in 2020 and came to work here at ERDC. And I just applied looking for a structural engineering job. And Mr. Gerardo calls me asking what I know about bridges. And I said, well, I drive over them. That's about it. And he must have been pretty desperate because I ended up getting the job. So it's been a really cool place. I do the bridge inspections with them. I do load ratings for the vehicular and railroad bridges to make sure they're safe to drive over. And the really cool part of the job is doing remote bridge assessments. Whenever our soldiers are in other countries, they need to know if they can cross a bridge on a route they're planning. So they'll give me a call and we have to kind of research how that country designs their bridges, and we give them a pretty good educated guess on what we think it can support. So that's a lot of fun doing those.
Okay. Well, great. Well, it's very nice to get to know you guys. And so we're going to dive into the subject matter today. And again, the name of the show is Engineering Excellence, Protecting Army Transportation Infrastructure. So we're here today to talk about ADTIP. And so what exactly is it and why is it important for the Army?
Yes, the Army Dams and Transportation Infrastructure Program, that's what we call it, ADTIP or ADTIP.
Acronyms are all over the place with the government.
That's the Army life. When I came in 86, it took me 6 months and a glossary to catch up with all the Army acronyms. So basically, this is a program that we push. My predecessor, Terry Stanton, pushed to help the Army installations comply with all the federal laws, all the Army regulations, and to keep everybody basically safe when we're dealing with Army airfields, Army dams, Army bridges, railroad tracks. Then we got waterfront facilities, which that's the area that Rodney specialized. And the program, that's 5. Yes. And the program also includes payment evaluations and implementations. That is run at the Omaha District at the Transportation System Center, TSC. That's the part that they're dealing with the payment evaluations and management. So the goal is to centralize with all funding coming from Headquarters Income Installation Management Command, and we are in charge to keep everybody compliance with every regulation, every law. In the old days, each installation, each base, they were on their own. Base Picatinny Arsenal was doing certain things, this other base was doing certain things. And when they look at it overall, they saw the bigger ops of the Pentagon that there was a lot of places that were in red. They were not complying with all the rules because people down at the base are really busy. They are short-staffed. So the proposal that we put was, okay, let's start with a region. We start with the Northeast region. In the past, the Army bases were grouped by regions. Northeast, Southeast, Southwest, and then Pacific and Europe. Let's start with one region to see if we can bring the whole bases in that region to a green condition. That's what the commanders want. They don't want to see red. They sometimes can live with the yellow condition that they like the colors, but they want everything to be green. So we started with a Northeast region with a centralized program taking care of all the inspections and all the requirements for those 5 areas.
Okay.
As soon, it took us like 4 years to get that region completed. They saw the value of centralizing the program because, again, every base is responsible for this. The assumption is that every person on base, on the DPW, Directorate of Public Works, they got time to read all the regulations and know what they have to comply with. So, and in reality, they don't have time to deal with all this.
Right.
So as soon we show that, hey, we can, we got a region that it came from red and amber to green and amber, they saw the value of the centralization of the program. Mm-hmm. At the beginning, we were only doing bridges and dams because those are the two areas that are required by law. There is a federal regulation, federal law that says you have to inspect and maintain your bridges, your public bridges, and same with the dams, because you could see a dam failure, it complicates the life of the people on base and outside the base, because that water is going to go everywhere if the dam fails. And most of the time, it affects the people outside the fence.
Okay.
And everything that we do is inside the perimeter area of the base.
Okay.
Worldwide. So as soon as we finish with that northeast region, they say, okay, this is good. Let's expand it to all the other regions. And after bridges and dams, we showed the success. Then they added railroad track inspections. There's not a federal law that requires you to inspect track, but there's Army regulations, because you got a lot of Army traffic that they have to be moved in and out of the base. In some places, they have to move bombs, ammunition in and out.
Right.
So track got involved, and then same with the airfield evaluation. Believe it or not, the Army, you would think that Air Force is the one in charge of flying stuff. No, the Army got aviation assets. They got helicopters. They even got regular planes that they have to land and move everywhere. Then after that, we slowly introduce waterfront facilities, which basically is like a bridge, but in salt water.
Okay.
Most of the time. And that's how the program have evolved.
Okay.
To include all 5 areas. And paper was added, I think it was 2015, when the DOD, the Department of Defense, decided that they want to implement a management for the parking lots and roads, pavement systems. Supposedly every Army base, every DOD base is supposed to implement that management system by 2026.
And so, can you talk about the ADTIP, Bridge Safety Program, and how many structures it covers across the Army?
Yeah. For bridges, and I think that's one of the reasons why I'm still here working at ERDC, mm-hmm. because we cover about 2,600 bridges worldwide. This is not only in the U.S. We got bases, I don't have the count of city, something state maybe, but we also got bases and bridges in Alaska, outside continental U.S. Mm-hmm. We got Hawaii, we got Japan, and outside Japan, Okinawa. In Europe, we got Italy and Germany.
Okay.
So this number keep changing, and you will think, oh, they know where all the bridges are and what is a bridge. But no, every time we got increases. Every year we got increases because people are coming back and say, oh, I got this, I found this in the middle of nowhere. And it could be a bridge built in the 1940s that now, for the first time, they want us to look at it. So the structures that we got here in the States, we have to comply with Federal Highway Administration regulation, and we have to treat them like the same way Mississippi DOT or the local county treat their bridges and submit their data. Overseas, we don't have that requirement. So in the U.S., we submit to Federal Highway around 1,200 bridges we got a lot of structures that are closed. Active, I think it was like 983 that
Okay.
we submit every year to Federal Highway. These are structures considered open to the public, even though, like at ERDC, you have to go through a gate and show an ID,
Right.
but anybody can show a driver license and go inside the base.
So when you guys are saying bridges, are you vehicle bridges, pedestrian bridges, railroad bridges? I mean, it's
It include that the ones we have to provide to Federal Highways are vehicular bridges over 20 feet.
okay.
But after that initial consolidation with the Northeast region, they said, hey, we're not going to stop there. We need to take care of the railroad bridges, which for railroad is a different definition of what is a bridge. It's 10 feet. And they got some other labels, but then we're gonna take care of culverts, larger culverts, box culverts or pipe culverts, and pedestrian bridges was another one.
Okay.
Originally, we were doing the pedestrian bridges that were going over the road
Right.
because you got the danger that if you don't keep up, anything from top of that pedestrian bridge can fall and hit a car, or vice versa. A big crane can go in and hit the structure if you don't know the proper height or clearances. So those are the.
Okay.
But we've been dealing with the structures. Normally, they set up a rule so the DPWs won't get lazy. We're saying, hey, we're starting at 6 feet. Yes, technically speaking, a bridge have to be over 20 feet long, but we're starting smaller structures because if this fail, it can interrupt your traffic and it become an obstruction. So for the program, they decided we're going to start at 6 feet openings, and as long as part of the Army property, and they let us know, because that's the other problem we got. Sometimes they don't let us know. We can include it in the program. And for Federal Highway, we just submit the report, the vehiculars report all bridges over 20 feet.
So with that being said, what's the difference about inspecting these bridges in the U.S. compared to those overseas?
Well, overseas, sometimes they got different rules or timelines. For example, in Germany, they are required by German law. We have to comply with local host nation rules and Army rules. The commander decided which one to use. He can decide to use the more stringent or the more lax, but normally they go more stringent because every commander is concerned about the safety of their troops, because they realize the Army got some big heavy equipment. They got the big tanks, they got transporters, and they want to keep the soldiers and the civilians inside the base safe. So, like for example, Germany is required to do an in-depth inspection every 5 years. In-depth inspection is that you basically have to be touching everything, hands length. Like my old bridge inspector teacher says, you should be able to kiss the girder on the beam. That's how close you have to be.
That's pretty close.
Yeah. So that's a requirement, but we cannot do that here in the state because the cost will be prohibited to do that type of in-depth inspection every 24 months. Yeah, that's our requirement for Federal Highways. Every 24 months we have to inspect those bridges. But what we do is what we call more like a routine inspection. I don't have to be kissing that girder, that beam, but as long as I can see all the components, I'm okay. So for Germany, we do every 4 years, like a regular routine inspection using the same U.S. standards. And the German bases have to contract to a local company to do the German in-depth inspection. And part of our job is also to be able to use those reports and see, okay, are they making sense? In the early days when we started, the German reports were in German.
Right.
And we didn't have anybody who knew German, and there was no Google translator. So we eventually researched in the area of, okay, how the German system compared to our system. Mm-hmm. And basically system numerical is just reverse. So it's similar to what we do when we call it something is good, mm-hmm. fair, poor, or critical. In the US, we go from 9 to 0, 9 being the best, 0, you better run, this stuff is gonna fall. In Germany, it's the other way around, from 1 to 5.
Well, that's confusing.
Yeah, but as long as you know for the first time. But they use a lot of description, similar method that we use. So it's okay. Not a big deal. The key is that the reports are really big, and they got other issues that they have to deal with. Like, for example, when we got a lot of bridges going over German autobahns. And in some of those German autobahns that do not have a speed limit, you could see how dangerous will be for us to be looking at the bridge, because we have to look at everything from the ground and from the top. When you got drivers going 150 miles per hour racing through the autobahn, so it complicates some of the inspections.
So then we'll be able to get into how do inspections like underwater checks and special safety evaluations help keep Army bridges safe?
Rodney deals a lot with the diving teams. Our teams normally take care of everything above the water. Mm-hmm. And Rodney got teams of other district divers, and we also got access to contract divers that they're basically going to look below the water, because we have to look at everything on a bridge. We may not do it the day we at the same time, mm-hmm. Because maybe the underwater is done a different date, sometimes different month. But as long we have to be certain that above water everything is structurally sound, nothing is falling apart, mm-hmm. and same below water, because in the Army at least we haven't got any failures due to strength of the bridge. What I mean is we know, now Trey figured out most of our capacities of our reportable bridge, but we know how much a bridge can take, and I'm not aware of a overload vehicle going through an Army bridge that make the bridge fail, put in the gap. Mm-hmm. However, the underwater inspection is important because water could be running fast and scouring, removing bed material from the supports. That will be a most likely cause of a bridge failure, scour. And we got some culverts who have failed in some bases outside the base, railroad culverts. I think I'm aware of another one because of after a big flood, mm-hmm. one of these 100-year floods, scour will be the problem, and that's how the divers comes to play to look at the conditions of the support, of the bridge support, that you got enough material, you got enough embeddment, and that they were designed properly. Okay. And if you need to put in some countermeasures so the supports will withstand more flood events.
Okay. Rodney, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, so basically, like Gerardo said, the divers that we have in-house, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that later when we talk about the program. Okay. But they basically help us do the underwater inspection, and like Gerardo said, it's really critical and important for the bridges to, for us to check for scour problems, scour evaluation and whatnot. And us as I'm also a bridge inspector, so I also do some bridge inspection. And if you don't have the capability of going on the water, like the training and the equipment, it's really difficult for you to assess the foundations of the bridge. Most of the time, we're dealing with milky water. You cannot see most of, the underwater foundation. So it's really critical to have the divers in place so that we can also assess the underwater situation of the bridges that require underwater.
Okay.
Yeah, a lot of people think that this diving is like you going to Hawaii and you got pristine waters and you can see all this coral reef and fish. And no, a lot of stuff is really high hazard conditions because you got murky waters. You basically have to be touching everything to check, do I have a hole here? Do I have a hole on my support? And people get disappointed. Correct. And then in the south, you have to deal with snakes, alligators. At Fort Moore, it used to be Fort Benning. First time we took divers over there, we have to have a fish and wildlife guy guarding for alligators. That's why we named that bridge the Alligator Bridge.
Oh, good to know.
But they still have to they encounter water moccasins, and so it's not a glamour type of inspection. It's not one of those scuba. The Hawaii's or the Pacific type of underwater inspection.
And so I saw that ADTIP has trained over 300 people since 1998. Why is this training so important, and how does it help the Army meet safety standards?
We, as part of the Installation Management Command protocols, they want at every DPW, Directors of Public Works, have personnel who can understand the reports that us or contractors or other districts put together. So we basically make them go through the same training that we go to become inspectors and go through the same class. It's a 2-week long class, and we make them take a refresher every 5 years, because they need to understand the reports that we're producing for bridges. They need to, sometimes those are the personnel when there's a flooding or something happen, an accident, those are the guys who are gonna be there first. They cannot, normally they will call us to give them help, but they are the first set of eyes when there's a flood, when there's an accident or a barge or something hit a pier, like we've seen the news before. So they need to understand basic concept of bridge inspection. So the bosses at the headquarters decided, no, we're gonna put them through the class. And even though they are not gonna be doing inspections, the 24-month routine inspections, the expectation is that they're gonna be doing annual checkup. We call it the annual inspection. That basically they go and says, yeah, the bridge is still here, and when they can look at the report, the damage still the same. If it gets worse, that's when they pick up the phone and call me,
right,
and said, hey, I need you to check this, or we got some issues, or I need you to come and close this structure. We do not have the authority to close bridges inside an Army base. A regular bridge inspection, if I'm inspecting for Mississippi DOT and I found something that I say, hey, this is bad, I need to close this bridge right now, I got the authority to call the police and call the local and says, we need to barricade this and close it. Inside the base, there's, again, Army protocols, and I say, hey, we highly recommend that you close the structure or bypass, close a lane sometimes, or set up some fissures, but that's the commander's responsibility and the director of public works.
Okay.
Because we go everywhere, and I don't have that authority inside the fence. That's the local, and we recommend, and all of them are really compliant. They don't complain about us telling us to close a bridge.
Okay. So everything I've read, I understand that you also inspect and maintain Army waterfront facilities. Why is that important? And how is it different from inspecting bridges? There you.
Yeah, so that's my area, Rodney here. So as you know, as bridges, all forms of infrastructure are critical in some way or another, and waterfront is not a section of that. One of the main differences is that unlike bridges, there's no federal law requiring waterfront inspections. So the Army has internal regulation to play in place to guide that legislation. So what exactly is a waterfront facilities? Because we can talk about waterfront facility and maybe some of the listeners are not familiar with that. Waterfront facilities are structures that are used to secure vessels and other activities related to water, and those include piers, wharf, docks, bulkhead, and some other like marinas, boat ramps, and some stuff like that. Also, they include cranes in some areas, some other utilities that they use to connect the vessels. The main difference between them, basically, most of the inspection in the waterfront facilities is on the water. If you think about a pier, it's just like a long bridge that goes in the ocean or the water, pretty much. So everything is important about it, but you have a lot of the element in the foundation exposed to the water, and that's where it differs from bridges, because not every bridge are across waterlands.
Right.
So the challenges are that you need to have divers to look into those foundations and those areas in the water. But there's also a little bit more complicated structure in terms of the elements. It has more detailed elements, more redundancy and whatnot, because most of these piers, wharf, and structures are used to not only anchor the vessels, but also to move equipment around, and you have cargo ships and whatnot, where you have to move cargo loads through the wharf and through the pier for, to load it in the vessels. So you have to have a huge load capacity.
Right.
So that's why it has a lot of redundancy in terms of the structure. So you can imagine that, these are lengthy structure, complicated structures. So the inspection is a little bit more thorough. There's 3 levels of inspections. We usually do 100% level 1, which is just visual cursory inspection throughout the structure itself, with a statistic sampling about 30% level 2. A level 2 inspection is a little bit more in depth, where you have to have hands-on the structure. One of the challenges is the marine growth in the area. So you can imagine a pier with a lot of marine growth in it. You cannot assess the pier like that. You don't know if there's a hole punching through or not.
Right.
So the divers will have to remove the marine growth, sometimes 100% of the area that they're inspecting, in order to inspect the parts of the structure. Yeah.
So I understand when inspecting these armies, there's 23 waterfront facilities. What common issues, just like you just said, the growth, and how do they affect the Army's operations?
So we have, like you said, 23 Army facilities around the world, just like Gerardo's bridges. We have some of the waterfront facilities in the East Coast, some of them in the West Coast. We also have waterfront facilities in Japan, Hawaii, Kwajalein, Italy, name it, all around the world. So one of the main challenges is for us as the inspectors and the divers, one of the in the program by itself is to have the equipment arrive to the right place. Not all. Let's say we take Japan, for example. If we're gonna go there, it's very difficult to get all the equipment over there at the time of the inspection. You're thinking about oxygen tanks and whatnot.
Shipping nightmare, is it not?
It's a shipping nightmare. Yes, that's one of the challenges, and that's the logistic side of it. In terms of the inspections, you're dealing with some murky water in some areas, and pretty much the visibility is zero, and so they have to rely on their tactile sense in most of the cases where you are down there in this water, not being able to see anything, 10, 20 feet down on the water, and you have to rely on your senses. So it's very critical to have communication, and the inspector have to be able to inspect with their hands and make sure that they ensure that the safety of the that's one of the things. And when we talking about the waterfront, you have one of the area that is more critical is the water line, because in a high tide you have the water is covered certain areas, right? In the low tides, the water goes down, and that area that it was covered by water now is exposed to the air. And depending on whether you are on benign water or aggressive water, and depending on the type of material that you have, whether you have steel, concrete, timber, that will create a sort of a reaction, right. With the material and the environment. And that usually is where most of the critical findings are related. You can think about, piers that are supposed to carry all your loads from the wharf that are now not bearing or basically gone. So all those loads will now need to redistribute themselves in other areas. So you kind of have some problems, and the major impact is on the mission, where you have mission where you need to load certain vessels. Now you cannot pass through this path because the low carrying capacity of that area is not what it was supposed to, So that kind of issue can arise from the inspections, and it kind of take a toll into the mission of the garrison.
Okay. So
and he also got a problem which we got at Bridges is that the Army got a lot of old facilities.
Right.
He may encounter timber that may be 60, 80 years old, and due to priorities, a lot of bases, they cannot spend a lot of money on a little bit of maintenance to try to keep up these facilities up so they will last longer.
Right.
Basically the unwritten policy is, okay, we wait until it gets so bad that I have to close it and put a new one.
Right.
So, and part of the program is try to educate the DPW, say, hey, a little bit of money on this type of maintenance or these repairs will extend the life of your facility.
Yeah. So one in that respect, one of the main issues is like I said before, we don't have a federal law in place that will mandate a time span of inspection, recurring inspection in this type of structure like on bridges. And some of these places, so they just comply with the Army regulation, which is it depends on the type of material and the environment, how frequent we do the inspection. But like Gerardo said, some of these places were built in 1950s and 1960s.
Right.
So when we go into the field to do the inspection, a problem arises. Now you have to do some specialized inspections or do some other analysis like load rating analysis, load testing analysis, where to do that kind of load testing and load rating, you need blueprints. You need to know the material, how old it is. And if you don't have all those specific information, now you have to have assumption. Now you have to have a more detailed type of testing, which translate into a lot of money.
Right.
So most of these places, they're trying to keep up, trying to maintain the facility, and the rate of deterioration is greater, I would say, than on bridges because of the environment that they are. And with the rate of repairs, they can't keep up.
Right.
So we encounter such a lot of problem with some areas like that.
Well, and say for these underwater inspections, what safety steps do divers follow, and how is their work organized?
So the first thing is that for the divers to be part of the dive safety program, they have to have a training in place and pass the training, and they also have to have time in diving time before they can become part of the diving team. Let's say they dive recreational, they dive for other projects and whatnot. That kind of account for the timing. In terms of the regulation, we do follow UFC regulation, which is unified
facility criteria.
Right. And we also follow the Navy regulations. And they're well-written and well-established regulations. And that's within the inspections. In the inspection itself, there's a lot of safety. Safety is the first or the most important thing when we do an underwater inspection. And it starts with what is called a dive plan. It's a plan that we prepare beforehand. It establishes what they're going to do in terms of if an emergency arises, with who they have to call, what certain levels of safety and protocols that they have to follow. That dive plan is submitted to the dive safety coordinator, and unless it's approved, the mission is a no-go. So in the field, they have to do daily briefings between all the divers, but also the safety offices of the different garrisons. What that does is to ensure that everybody's aware of what's the mission that day, what's the weather condition like, who's the divers that are going to be down in the water, what's the health condition on the divers, whether the diver felt sick or not that day. There's also some timing regulation on how much time the diver can be on the water that day or that week. It kind of accumulates. And it all depends on the depth of the diving, and it also depends on the weather condition and whatnot. Also, they have to check all the equipment and make sure that the equipment is fit to do the inspection, that there's nothing wrong with the equipment. And then on the side of the diver itself, they suit up with a dry suit, but also have like a big helmet.
Right.
On top, well, the helmet has what is called umbilical cord. It goes all the way from the water to the control center in the wharf or in the nearby facility. That umbilical cord has a line for oxygen, which basically the oxygen tank is outside in the mission control area, and they provide the oxygen through that cord. They also have a communication line, so they have communication all the time with the diver. If for some reason the communication gets cut off, there's also a video feed that they have, and they are seeing it in the mission control. And all that comes together to determine whether the conditions are safe, whether the diver is responsive, is communicating with them. Any sort of doubt that the diver is not communicating with them, or even if the live feed or the communication line gets cut off, they pull out the diver right away. There's also a diver in standby, which always suit up in case of an emergency, so that if something happened, that diver is ready to take action and go into the water and save the life of the other diver. There's also what is called a tender, which is somebody on top of the structure, pretty much making sure that the diver has enough of the cord.
Right.
That they got eyes on where the divers is, and also checking, around that the mission goes accordingly.
So the next one is, can you share any recent successes or improvements from ADTIP or ADTIP inspections, especially in terms of preventing problems or making repairs?
Well, on bridges, that's where Trey comes in. A lot of the bridges in installation bases were designed eons ago to all standards, and the Army keep making bigger and bigger vehicles. Those bridges were not designed for today's M1 version 3 type of loads. Same with the carriers. So an example from a few years back that Trey and his team have to look at it is, okay, I got this bridge that was designed for this load. Can I pass now my new tank? Because every base was getting panicked. It was the same thing when they brought the, it's not the Emperor, before, the Striker vehicle years back. Everybody was panicking because here comes this big heavy vehicle with some huge tires. And weight-wise, it was not that bad when they were comparing with the design vehicles. But everybody was panicking, oh, this is going to destroy my bridge. So the load rating team have to go and show and say, hey, this is not that bad. Yes, it's going to deteriorate. In certain cases, you're going to deteriorate your bridge a lot faster. But when the recent case came with the M1 tanks, the new M1 tanks that they were deploying, normally in a lot of places they have to put that tank in a trailer. It's a specialized trailer that got 8 axles in the trailer port.
Yeah, it's got a lot. Something like that.
It got 8 wheels. It's a lot of wheels and a lot of axles. And again, when they look at the total weight of this beast, it says 116, 120 tons. I said, no, it's going to destroy my bridges. He has to show them, hey, this is not that bad. I got a different way to distribute my loads to the bridge, and it's not like I'm putting 100 tons in one spot. So their work basically said, no, this stuff we can pass, even though that bridge was not designed for an M1, A1, A2, or SEP 3. It's safe to use it. And they will provide go and no-go options inside the base, which is the same thing they do also for the soldiers. And he can talk more about the other stuff they do for the soldiers because it's similar.
Okay, Trey?
Yeah, so the big difference when we're load rating bridges, we're following codes that were designed for civilian vehicles, so like 18-wheelers. But military vehicles are a lot wider They're usually controlled in how they cross a bridge. It has to go right down the center line at a certain speed. You can't control that with civilian traffic because we're all blasting Motley Crue on the radio, driving 100 miles per hour.
Right.
So we're able to reduce some of those conservative safety factors, and that's how we're able to cross these much heavier vehicles on bridges that otherwise in the civilian world, there's no way you're allowed to let that cross. And in other countries, we do a similar thing on these remote bridge assessments. If we don't know what they're designing their bridges for, we can oftentimes look at the traffic that's crossing it, and we'll estimate the loads of those vehicles crossing that bridge, and then we'll correlate it to our military traffic. So that's one of the educated guesses of how we're figuring out what they designed that bridge for.
Okay. So to wrap up today, from each of you, what's the key takeaway you'd like our listeners to have from this valuable conversation?
Well, for bridges, basically, when you go, and it happened here in our ERDC campus, we used to inspect those bridges, try to keep it safe, and the DPW, Director of Public Works, to try to take care of, maintain, is when we're following law inside, and some people go and visit other places, other bases, is that their bridges and waterfront facilities are mostly in okay shape, that they're safe to use, because we're keeping an eye on them and says, when it gets to the point that it's going to be too dangerous, normally we will tell them, hey, you need to close.
Right.
Close.
That's your job.
And or replace.
Right.
So, and that's the key, that we're trying to keep all the bridges, notify the bases on condition when we do this every 24 months, and that everything is safe for everybody to use. Because you won't believe, in some places, we got a lot of Army bases that are open, that people from the outside won't go through a gate. They can go, hunters go in a lot of these places, and you can cross a lot of bridges before you get to a checkpoint. And we're just trying to let the DPW know where the problems, where they're going to have to start doing some work, and that the rest is in good shape for everybody to use.
Awesome. Anybody?
I also think that infrastructure as a whole, overall, is really important. So that's why our program kind of look into the main areas of dam, waterfront, airfield, railroad, bridges. And overall, the program, we're trying to maintain the integrity of the structure to provide some safety to the user being civilians, Army personnel, and that's the main goal that I think we're trying to achieve with the program.
Okay.